We are live. Vijay?
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Soin. Yes, a very warm welcome to all of you joining from whatever part of the world you are joining in. My name is Vijay Mistry. For those who don't know me, my name is Vijay Mistry. I'm the CEO and founder of Renter Director, author of multiple corporate training programs, which have a green light status award from the UK Trade and Investment. Our purpose is to see you leaders achieve standards of excellence in everything you do, and for those having businesses to help you to scale up your business with ease. Now, today I've got a very special guest, and we've got this interesting topic on how leadership can create a performance driven culture. That is where the impact is. And today I've got a special guest with me. Before I introduce Paul, I just want to give a shout out to my business partner, Soin Shah, back in Kenya. I'm sure he's enjoying some wonderful weather, unlike here in London, United Kingdom. So over to you, Soin, for a few words.
Thank you, Vijay. And yes, we have actually joined in live because we would not want to have technical issues surmount us. And actually, we are 2 minutes ahead of time. So I would like to give our audience some time to join in, and then we can start off. But of course, we shall be sharing fantastic million-dollar nuggets in this session of ours. Basically, we are, and this is a very interesting question that is being posed to all the leaders, and that is how do we enable, how do we create a performance-driven culture? This is in the minds of many, and it's being discussed not only in the media and across the world. There has been a discussion about the great resignation, and I'm sure we will touch upon that. And yes, we have a fantastic personality here with us today in our session, and I'm sure Vijay will give a brief introduction about him, so that all of our audience know that what we are discussing and where we are going. So yes, and we are top of the hour, and I think Vijay, we can go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Soin. And once again, a warm welcome to all of you. And I encourage all of you to please contribute. This is something, where we want to interact. And if you have any questions or contribution, please go ahead, because we want to make sure that each and every moment, each and every trigger that we are going to share with you makes an impact. So, one turning point, and that can really be a wake up call for you.
I,
So
I
today,
just
without
wanted,
much ado, sorry, Soin.
I just wanted to add that this is a shout out to all the audience out there. Please welcome, join in. Please shout out with your name and wherever you are joining in from. It is a pleasure to have you, to host you. And just to let you know, we have Peter Mwangi. Welcome on board, Peter, and Jacqueline from all the way in, in Kenya here. Welcome on board. It's great to have you. Please feel free to post as many questions that you may want to ask. We will attend to them at the end of this session, and trust me, we always do exhaust all the questions thoroughly. So we will keep some time towards that, although we are talking about half an hour. So without much ado, over to you, Vijay.
All right, fine. So I just want to introduce today's special guest we have, and we have with us Paul Craig. And Paul is a former company director and a producer of View Torch Pictures film and television production. And Paul has extensive experience in the field of music, video, and film production. So he's in the media sector itself, and the media business management as well, technical and creative assistant for all forms of media creation and business project management. And he spent many years at the technological cutting edge of the whole production pipeline, from the technical to the creative. And Paul has large scale base which has been used in launching a diverse range of film and television project. Can you imagine? So we have somebody really special. And at present, Paul is the founder, multimedia consultancy and production company ViewTouch Pictures Media, as well as working on technology projects. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's absolute pleasure to come on board, be invited here, and actually speak on what is such an important subject at such an important time during the year. And considering the challenges I think we're all going to face as the year goes on.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. So today's discussion, just like what Soin and I we've been mentioning about this particular topic, about how leadership can create a performance-driven culture. And I'll straight away, without taking much time, I just want to straight away take it over to Soin, who's going to moderate. He's going to, because by the way, we've already got some questions from you, and we know some common pattern of questions. So we want to address those because there are some concerns which many of you have as to how can we retain staff, what can we do to make sure that we attract the right talent, what are we going to do in the next phase of 2022. So we want to address some of the questions which you have come up with. And without much ado, so over to you for the first question.
Thank you, Vijay, and welcome on board, Paul, in this fantastic journey. I just want to I want to give a shout out to Abdi Rahman, who has joined us from India. So let's shoot the first question which you have received. What are the now? Here goes. The first question is: what are the specific challenges that businesses actually face when it comes to culture? And please do share any experience that you may have had which has impacted the performance adversely.
Right. So, Paul, maybe you can start off.
Yeah, it's culture is a very huge question. Obviously, we're a global. When it comes to industry now, we work as global industries now, wherever you are in the world, and so you are going to have a mix of talent within your group, within your organization, and within your company. So culture isn't just about where you come from, it's also about how people feel within that organization, whether they feel valued or heard, or even feel as if they're actually contributing properly to that organization, and whether their skills are showing through. I think there's a common mistake that just rewarding people monetarily is enough. And we're starting to see, obviously, as we mentioned about the great resignation, and just the fact that people are choosing lifestyle over, say, a huge wage packet, that, there are other factors in place within the organization that may need tweaking. And I think we all have to, as business leaders, we have to look at how we're running our organizations, how we're interacting with our staff and our middle level management, and how that message is, the culture message is coming through from top to bottom, because it's easily missed. I think it's, the larger the organization, the easier the messages can be missed. But yes, culture is a huge one now. It plays a very huge role in actually not only retaining talent, but also attracting talent as well, because people, word of mouth does get out there. If your organization isn't aligned with, say, the well-being of your staff, then that will be noticed, and people will talk about that, and it just gives gives your company a bad reputation.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And I just want to extend to what Paul you said. And when we are talking about some specific challenges, one of the key challenges which I've come across, and I'll just give you examples, not only from the manufacturing sector itself, but from the service sector as well. I mean, in this journey, what we have observed, and what I have particularly observed, is the lack of clarity in communication. In other words, when you are communicating, whatever it is, it could be a blueprint, it could be a snapshot, whatever it is, but that communication piece is missing. That's number one. Number two is that there is a little bit of imbalance when it comes to paying attention and giving equal sort of recognition to team members, and this imbalance itself is causing a bigger rift. Do you know one of the biggest problems, coaching executives, directors and managers and talking to leaders and business owners as well, is this thing of isolation. Many feel that they are not being recognized, they don't see themselves being recognized by the organization, and this is a key component we have come across in many businesses. So I just wanted to, there are very many other challenges as well, but I just wanted to share, and just like what you're saying, Paul, is that these challenges are causing a rift in culture. And I always say that this is like a virus. If there is one or two people who are demotivated and who are demoralized and who feel dejected in organizations, what really happens is it starts spreading to the others, you see,
Yes.
because it's about the influence, it's about the discussions which others have, and then they start being judgmental that it's the leaders who are not good or whatever it is. And this in itself causes such a huge disconnect within the organization itself. And you can imagine what it really how it impacts adversely to everybody. I mean, the whole organization, the whole talent pipeline from top to bottom, you'll see how it really adversely impacts. And this is one of the reasons that leaders get stressed. Before I end and I pass it over to Soin, um, we have our very good friend, our business associate, Rebecca Jenkins. Thanks, Rebecca, for joining. We have Akash from India as well joining as well. So thank you for joining as well. Over to you, Soin. What are your thoughts on this particular challenges in culture?
As I said, this is a very in-depth discussion, and we are having limited time. But I want to highlight on one real aspect that touches upon a lot of organizations, and this is an observation that I've had in various occasions. The one key factor that has that can lead to a performance-driven culture, and that is, in one word, I can say, is trust. Now, what I want to try to tell you is that with trust, you bring in the connectivity, and you bring in closeness, you bring in joy, happiness comes in, and with all that, of course, I'm sure you can expect results coming through. This is the essence of making a beautiful organization which is driven and connected, and I think this is very clearly elaborated in Stephen R. Covey's book, which is Speed of Trust. And I'm sure a lot of people must have read this one and seen how trust can really change a company's organization's culture. I will move on to the next question for us, and that is, not everyone can fit in one culture. I mean, of course, one suit does not fit all. So, what should companies do to ensure that everyone is feeling that they are part of the overall culture that a company is taking forward? Or
It's 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 a challenge. I'm not going to lie. I mean, within the world of film and television, because it's such a global industry, and because you have to service, you produce, say, a television program or a film, and it has to service the globe. Plus the fact that you have to use global talent to build um, that, it can be difficult to have a unifying culture within a company. But I think if you're, as you mentioned before, if you're trusting enough of the talent pipeline, and that's from middle management downwards, it, to me, the CEOs are just as important as the cleaner in a company, if you're running a factory. And if you trust each component within that pipeline, you'll find that not only will you actually not have to intervene and build a new culture on top of the one that you wanted in the first place, and as you say, with the actual issues of trust, but it will also provide a way of building efficiencies and speed as well. So it's in everybody's best interest to actually make sure that the culture aligns with actually being inclusive and including people from all backgrounds, regardless of your level of education or where you come from. If you've employed somebody, you've trusted yourself at one stage to actually employ that person. So the trust has to continue further down the line when you actually give them tasks. So trust is a huge part of culture, and helps with inclusivity as well. It really does, just to include everybody in the process. Everybody should feel some level of importance when you're building your product or service.
Yes, that's very important, and I want to touch on what Soin and Paul have spoken about. And again, I'm going back to the trust element itself. We are talking about how can others really fit in. So I've got two or three insights I want to share. The first and foremost is, when do you trust somebody? Is when you live your values. So you have your company values and you have your personal values as well. That forms your identity. But what is it that you have when you live your values, and when you don't have that conflict of interest, and when you have a singular purpose? What's going to happen? You're going to trust that organization more. The other thing is that recognition. We were talking about diversity, equality, inclusivity. This is so core to organizations. Even from a political standpoint. I mean, back in Africa. I mean, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got a lady president in Tanzania, and from the little that I hear, she's really doing a good job. From what I really understand, that inclusivity, that diversity is so much needed to make an impact. And when you start bringing everybody's thought process in place by empowering them, authentically living the values with a clear purpose. Take an example of Microsoft, or take an example of Facebook, Amazon, or Tesla, or any of these big companies. Just go and read their vision statement. It's like a one small line, but the whole world can understand. It's so easy. It's so it's very compelling as well. It's compelling at the end of the day. And once you start aligning your values, trust comes into play, transparency comes into play. You will see that the organization and the people pipeline will start working towards it. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. We just a sec. I just want to give a shout out. We have Jabir Bachani who's joined in. Jean Pierre has joined in from DRC. Wow, we've got somebody from Nairobi. We've got somebody from Congo, and we've got Kuldeep Kumar as well. So hi to everybody, and keep on. Let us know where you're coming from. If you have any insights, any comments, any contribution, or any questions that you have, please post so that we can share. I mean, we'll give you our thoughts on those ones. So over to you, Soin.
Yes, let me share the third question, and this is a very important one, and it's come from far. I give credit to this question, and that is, what should a company do with, say, over 1,000 employees do to ensure that they have a performance-driven culture embedded in their organization? Paul, over to you.
Yeah, it's again, it's funny because what VJ was saying about values, and I think sometimes people can get confused with the actual, the valuation of the company, how well it does monetarily, and what its core values are. And I think when it comes to performance, again, you've got to open up the pathways. Part of your values is opening up the pathways to allow people to actually perform at their best. If, for example, say there's I think I gave an example once of just even the smallest piece of work politics and the amount of time it can take to actually solve such issues within the workplace. If the work politics weren't there, and I understand that when people get together, things happen, and there are differences of opinion, but there are professional ways of actually being able to communicate with each other. In film and television, if you think about a standard blockbuster, we're talking about well over 1,400 people being involved in a single product. And so you can imagine the management structure from a producer all the way down to, say, a line producer on just a VFX pipeline. All it would take for, say, one particular visual effects shot to be stopped is if the two people who are working on it are feeling undervalued, or there's a particular piece of work politics, then you could easily lose a day, 2 days worth of work. And in the film business, 2 days, that could equate to another £500,000 worth of business disappearing, just because a manager decided, maybe a middle manager or a lower down floor manager decided that they didn't want to deal with that particular piece of politics. So it's about moving out of people's way. We all have differences with us, but just allow them the path to actually speed up and be efficient and be sort of think in a performance manner. I think that would help a lot of organizations, especially now, when we've got supply issue problems and everything being held up. To stop even more hold-ups, just allow your talent to perform, move out of their way, and let them move forward. And one of the ways of doing that is to try and remove as many pieces of work politics that may occur within your organization. It's very hard to see it out in the open, but you can pick away at it, obviously, with your sort of middle and lower management teams.
Thank you, Paul. I just want to give my 2 cents to this particular discussion on how, if you've got a large organization, if you've got 1,000 employees, number one, the first and foremost is, again, and I might reiterate this once again, is that the breakdown in communication. That's number one. A leader, a CEO of an organization with hundreds of employees came over to me and said, Vijay, my expectations are just not met. I'm really stressed because I don't know. I mean, somewhere along the line, there's the operations head of operations is not really performing up to par. I mean, up to the standards we wanted. And I said, so whose problem is it? And he's saying, obviously, it's the head of operations problem. Why isn't that person really and I repeatedly asked him the same question, that what do you think is the problem? And then he finally got it, that as a leader, his communication with his number two, and by the way, if you've got 1,000 employees or if you've got hundreds of employees, here's what you really need to do. The middle management, whoever are at that middle management itself, they need to be really strong. Deploy the right resources, give them the right tools, the right skill sets, make sure the learning and development is there, and make sure before you hire anybody, you need to make sure that you know that this is a long-term relation. Whatever it is, I mean, it has to be that long-term relation. And once you have those components in place, what is going to happen is you will see that culture, the right culture, starting with the tone at the top, because it always starts with the board level. If you've got 1,000 employees, you might be having a board of directors. starts with the tone at the top, and once it permeates, it will start going to the rest of the organization. The discipline, the intelligence, the insights, the impact, it all starts from the top. And the clarity in communication as to what the expectations are in simple terms, which anybody can understand. So these are some of the drivers which will help you, even if you got 1,000 or 10,000 employees, so long as your management is the right fit within your organization, you will see that you will be able to grow. They have to be those entrepreneurs, like, there's the entrepreneur, but they are entrepreneurs. They are part of the whole progression path as well, with the right incentives and the right compensation and everything, obviously. But that, if that is in play, and again, Paul, what you mentioned is spot on as well, giving them the freedom, allowing them to do the work as well, and making sure that there is good feedback, there's good measures, there are good appraisals as well at the end of the day. So those are some of the components, so in that particular question, which would help organizations to really have that right culture.
I want to bring in a bit of a twist here, and I'll tell you, a lot of people might not agree with me, but trust me, I've seen organizations which are large, but if they have their structure well defined and simplified, in some cases, we do advocate to have a flat structure so that we limit the number of levels where the communication is percolated down. It makes a lot of impact. And this is, again, I'll refer to my earlier point, which is about speed, and and about the speed of trust. Now, what I want to say is that when there is such a large organization, and Vijay alluded to this in terms of having clarity in communication and having a flatline structure, when communication is succinct, and a lot of people are able to discuss and actually come out, they are given the time to express their views, there is a connection that is being built. Now, this connection can lead to a lot of performance driven initiatives that can be taken charge. And Vijay talked about it very clearly, and that is, you got people who are intrapreneurs. They are bringing their fire that is in their belly to get things done. Now, this is very important. I mean, in today's world, we keep saying, and auditors keep saying, that they need to be controls, checks and balances. Yes, it is important, but you can't have a check on a check and then a further check on a check. I mean, what are you trying to do? And that's where a lot of productivity is wasted. And really, this is about time. So you find organization having all this kind of checks, and literally having only 20% being productive time. 80% of time is spent in checking the checker. So I think simplicity is important. Having a flatline structure is important, and making sure people are given their chance is also important. So I think I have summarized on my points. I'll move to the next question, and that is, of course, I need to bear in mind that we have limited time this time round. And the fourth question is, I mean, we hear of, and I said it earlier, we've talked about the great resignation. I mean, we hear about redundancies lately from big and small companies. What is, in your opinion, that could have been done more differently to make sure that staff are not made redundant? Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I come from a almost egocentric industry. So you'll find that in film and television, it is driven by ego. And again, just in my opinion, ego can also create problems as well. You need ego to a sense to actually get up and do stuff, but at the same time, you also need to have a balance with your own ego to actually, make sure that the whole organization is safe. As a producer, you have to make sort of decisions on cost all the time. at the beginning of the process, way before you've even got a script, all the way down through production to even distribution. There's decisions being made about cost, and I think it should be a case that industry should now start looking at the cost of, or the way, how much things cost rather than how much people cost. And I think it's very easy for companies to turn around and say, oh, we'll just make them redundant and that'll save us some money. But obviously, you employed those people because you had a growth plan in mind. So, are you going to fight through the current, the current problems in the global economy by actually looking at costs, or are you just going to get rid of the talent and then when we do come out of this problematic time, have no talent around you because they moved on? So it's something where I feel a lot of industry needs to really look at the cost of things, even the cost of themselves, is when it comes to senior management and leadership, rather than the cost of your whole talent pool.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And I think, first of all, I think the shift in thinking should move from people as cost. I know they have been factored in overheads as a monthly salary, but to people as investments. Because at the end of the day, what are you really investing in? You're investing in someone who's going to really add value to an organization. That's number one. So what could organizations do differently rather than all these redundancies that we hear about? One of the thing is, before hiring, you need to be a forward thinker. You need to look at it from a long term perspective. If you have a vision, if you've got a purpose, you have to meet that vision and purpose. Fine, there are going to be some times when there is going to be storms around as well. But here's what, and I'll give you a practical example. So, in the hospitality industry, COVID hit. And what happened? There were very many tour and travel organizations worldwide who, they just didn't know what to do, really. I mean, they had to really sort of shed staff. We've heard about all that. But here's one organization, what they did is, starting from the top, they cut the salaries down to about 50%. And the leader, the CEO of that particular organization, said, I'll take a 75 to 80% cut, just to make sure that everybody's commitment is there. And they said, all right, fine, some of you executives work part-time. And here's what happened. That particular company had a contingency plan. So listen to me very carefully. This is what I press upon. If you have any organization, there is going to be more problems as we move forward. There are more uncertainty is going to unfold as we move forward. One thing that I always press upon organizations to do, and this is what So Even helps organizations, is to make sure they have some little sinking fund, some sort of a contingency, so that if there are those uncertainties, the company has the oxygen to take them through that particular storm. So my point here is, I mean, I don't know, everybody's circumstances are different, in different territories and different environments. Before hiring, think whether this is for a long-term business relation or a short-term, whatever it is. Otherwise, just give them a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract, telling them that, look, this is the understanding we have, rather than the redundancies, which really, imagine an organization, uh, you know uh, axing a few jobs or cutting a few jobs. Imagine what happens to that culture in that particular organization. What would be the rest of the staff think? They'll say, hey, I suppose my number is going to be next. What's going to really happen to the productivity of that particular organization? You need to ask those reality questions, those wake up call questions, before you really employ somebody, because that's an investment in the pipeline in your organization, and that person's going to add value. He or she is going to come out with unlocking their potential, coming up with their raw talent if they are in the right fit, and making sure that they organization is navigated towards meeting the goals, the vision, and the purpose of the organization. That is where the traction is. That is where the impact is. So over to you. I'm conscious about the time. Otherwise, I would have given more examples. But I hope you got the point about this contingency, having this sinking fund in place, even if it's a 2%, 5%, depending on whatever your reserves are. But from a financial standpoint, speak to your head of finance or speak to the financial personnel handling your financials and see how you can come up with a model that's going to help you during these stormy periods. Over to you, Soin.
I think we are all on one page, and it's clearly reverberated that redundancies should be the last thing. Okay. If
Yeah.
and really speaking, a performance-driven organization should have thought about beforehand when you're hiring the new staff. Okay. The other thing is when you are becoming a performance-driven organization, the only aspect where you are actually letting go of stuff is when performance is a problem, and that's when people realize that, listen, it's not going to be a joke here. You got to pull your weight. So I will move to the next point, and that is, hiring new staff is clearly an expensive process, right? What should businesses do to make sure that they do retain their staff?
In our industry, in film and television, we have a huge skills shortage. We've got a two-sided problem. We have freelancers, and we also have staffed individuals as well, people who work as staffs for, say, post-production houses or maybe big studio facilities. And both ends of the industry are actually suffering. We're finding it hard to encourage people to work as freelancers, and we're finding it increasingly difficult to find staffed people. And I think just the sort of combination that we've spoken about of culture and trust, those things are definitely missing within some portions, not all portions of the film and television industry, but there are some portions of the film and television industry where people have just decided, and these are highly skilled people, decided, right, okay, film and television is not for me, let me go and work in another industry. And the last thing we want as anybody with companies or leaders is for people to actually leave the industry, let alone just leave your organization. So you lose that talent, and it's very hard to actually get that talent back. So again, everything that we've spoken about, just the pathways to trust, inclusivity, building a culture where all levels of the organization are in sync. Once you can do that, then you'll be able to, actually hold on to people because they'll want to stay there. It's about a person's desire to actually stay within that organization.
Thanks, Paul. And yes, just going off course, Rebecca has said, I agree. Ego can get in the way and sabotage the success that comes from the collective, which is so important. And this is one of the key reasons why we talk about mental muscle. I don't know, at some point, so it might be mentioning about that. But anyway, you're spot on that one. But anyway, I just want to refine this question and extend it further. That it's not only about the retention of staff, but keeping them motivated, because we are looking at a performance-driven culture here. So what is it that we can really do? And I want to give you this acronym, which is CRESP. So I repeat, CRESP. The C stands for compensation. You have to make sure that you have to give the right incentives, you have to give the right benefits, and you have to give the right remuneration at the end of the day, making sure that the package is attractive enough and appealing enough for the right talent to be in your organization. That's the C. The R is respect and recognition. You must appreciate, you must recognize your team members. And when can you recognize and respect your team members is when you know exactly what they are really doing. In some organizations, the CEO is just blinded because the general manager is a close friend or a confidant, and they just get together, and he's so weak, the leader is so weak that he just listens to one person. You as a leader have to make sure that you know exactly what is really going on. So recognition and respect has to be there. The E, sometimes, the E, I'll extend the E slightly. The E stands for empowerment. You need to empower your team members. Number two, active listening, move to empathy. That's another part of the E. So you have to listen with empathy. The third is emotional intelligence, making sure that the choices that you're going to make, the discussions that you're going to make, those are going to be lively, those are going to be dynamic. So that in itself is powerful. I want to add one more E to all this. That is energy. You as a leader have to be fully switched on, and you need to have the optimum level of energy at the end of the day. So that forms the E. So CRESP. The S stands for safety. We've spoken about Soin and Paul talking about trust. So imagine when can you have that safety is when you trust an organization and you have that safety net. It's like you're safeguarded within that organization. It's like you feel safe working in that particular organization. And finally, in order to retain and keep your staff motivated, what you really need to do is progress, a progression path. So at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you have the learning and development in place, but at the same time you have that those building blocks in the organization, that as the organization scales up, as the organization uh, you know uh, s- increases profits and revenues and opens more branches, and all that, you need to make sure that you get your team members promoted and have them progress to another level altogether. That way you will be able to retain and you will be able to motivate staff. I'm sure there must be other triggers, but I just wanted to share a few of these ones which will help you. The only thing I really press upon you is take one of these points which Soin, Paul, and me are sharing. Just take 1 or 2 points and just practice and make that change, and you'll see the difference within a few months from now. So over to you, Soin.
Yes, we do hear you, Vijay, and implementation is key of these points. And of course, if you want to get results, implementation needs to be done correctly as well. I'll move to the last question, and that is, we are moving forward, and we are aware that challenges will increase as we enter the second half of 2022. I know we are already in the midst of a storm, not even economically, but even politically. How can companies be better prepared from now to ensure sustainability and job security for all their employees?
I think we definitely covered it. Empathy and kindness.
Yes.
You'd be surprised how far that goes with most people, and it doesn't cost anything. There is, I suppose, in business a thought that kindness can be seen as weakness, but it's actually a little bit of a superpower if used properly. If you're able to have professional conversations with your whole pipeline, with everybody involved in building your product or service, you can use kindness correctly to actually empathize with that staff member, see where the issues are, and obviously, build better plans for the future. So that stops any kind of stickiness that we're going to suffer and see during the rest of this year, and I would imagine at the beginning of 2023 as well. So just allowing your staff to feel as if they are really contributing to the growth of your company, just by being a little bit kinder, just a little bit more empathetic towards their own personal situation, because obviously, as an organization, and as businesses, we're going to see a lot of hardship this year. But you've got to remember that people are going to see a lot of hardship this year as well. So, and it's a people driven business. So we're definitely, I think, just me, kindness used correctly in any organization will pay dividends, and it's the cheapest thing you can do for, for your whole, just for your industry, let alone the organization. I mean, film and television could do with just a little sprinkle of kindness, just a small smidge.
Thank you, Paul. And just to add to what Paul has said is that and again, this was another challenge I had, that one CEO came up to me and said that if I be very nice to my people, they try taking advantage. I mean, I don't know if you come across that situation, but somebody, one CEO came and said, "Hey, Vijay, you talking about being nice, being this, and what's going to happen is they start taking advantage." And I said, "Do you know what's missing? You don't have proper systems in place, coherent systems in place. Have your principles, have your policies in place, and have the guidelines in place. This is very critical, which organizations just miss out. They, ju-
Yes.
they feel that policies need to be, it's just paper. But at the end of the day, the policies can be 1 page or 2 page policies, but they can
Yeah.
really make a profound impact. If you have, and many organizations have bylaws, but if you have certain principles within your organization, if you have certain uh, just like what we talk about, having those boundaries in place, if you have those in place, just like Paul, what you are saying, being kind is absolutely fine, empathetic, absolutely fine, but it's within those guidelines of the organizational's goals, vision, and what they really, uh, because they form the bedrock. They are the pillars of the organization at the end of the day, and everybody needs to follow those particular principles and the policies and procedures of that particular organization. And here's another thing I spoke about. So, in just to answer this question, I spoke about contingency earlier on as well. So, I was talking about having that sinking fund which can help during tough times. But here's what organizations can really do and leaders can really do: is think of going on a small retreat as well, and bring your team together and brainstorm. Or you can even do this on a Saturday in your own offices or wherever, in a hotel or wherever. But here's what you need to do: come out with a few set of questions. That the first question is, begin with the end in mind. Where are you planning to be a year from now and 3 years from now? So you need to be very clear as to where you're going, where you are heading for, so everybody sees the vision, your team sees the vision as well. And then you can even ask the challenging question that, what if something, what if these uncertainties come in play? How are we going to handle it? You'll be surprised with the amount of insights you can collect. And you, all you need to do is just take one board, write all of them down, and pick one or two or three of the core ones which are common amongst everybody, and work on that. Because perceptions, insights, that's where it's 10,000 IQ points. This is where you're going to get the highest level of intelligence, depending on which territory. You could be in India, or you could be in Congo, or Zambia, or South Africa, or Australia, or US, or the UK, wherever, it doesn't matter. But this in itself is where you will be able to, you'll mitigate most of your risks. So if you can do that, that in my opinion is extremely important. Another thing that you need to really do as a board, or if you have that executive team, or you could have a coach or somebody who can help you, like we have Rebecca Jenkins here, who does a brilliant job. But here's the thing, is that you need to really come up with someone who's going to really take you to the next level as well, help you to move to the next level, whom you can really talk to. And you need to be vulnerable as a leader. Ego out of the way. You need to be vulnerable and accept that, hey, look, we are not perfect, I'm not perfect, we're not perfect, and I don't want to be perfect. I want to progress. The only way I can progress is with that imperfection, or with that stepping stone of knowing that there is an elevated level. So this is why, uh, having the contingencies, making sure that you connect better with your network as well, with the close proximity of some of the leaders as well, and see what they are doing in their line, and in whatever they are doing. So you can pick up some cues, you can pick up some signals, you can detect what is going to happen in the next few months. So those are just some thoughts that I wanted to share. Swing.
Yes, I think you've summarized very well this topic. And of course, having your navigational paths correct, making sure that, charity starts at home in terms of kindness. Charity also needs to be closer to home as well. And I think that's what Paul also elaborated on. And clearly, that's a key to having a performance-driven culture embedded in an organization. I know we have overstepped on our time a bit, but I think more importantly, it's all about giving the valuable insights that we have shared. Thank you, Paul and Vijay. Till we see you again, I'll say adios, asante sana. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Soin. Thank you for moderating this session. And look, thank you, everybody. I mean, just a final closing point. I mean, just take 1 or 2 points from these insights. This is recorded, so you can visit this again. If you can pick 1 or 2 points and make a difference, then our mission is accomplished, as I put it. So we just want you to succeed, and we want you to grow. So, Paul, any last words before we close the session?
I think, despite the challenges of this, for the rest of this year, I do believe, with the insights here and as you say about building a policy which allows those insights to actually sit well within an organization, I do believe we can come out of this year even stronger. Actually, I think, people talk about a global recession. Possible, but essentially I do believe that this is the point where we can all build towards stronger organizations, for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Right. Thank you very much, everybody. And Soin?
Yeah, thank you for your parting shot. I think what I really gained from this is being resilient. And yes, Paul, thank you very much. Vijay, thank you again. And thank you to our audience who have sat this through. It's almost 50 minutes. And I think this way we'll call it close to this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.